program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the Eau Claire Area School Board. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here on this blizzardly, windy night. I'd like to call this school board meeting to order. Thank you to people that are putting it online for us, and also for the cookies from Memorial's Culinary Arts program. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I did have a cookie. They're very good. Are we in compliance with the open meetings law, Patty?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Roll call for a quorum, please.
Commissioner Duax?
Here.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
Here.
Commissioner Harder?
Here.
Commissioner Luganville?
Here.
Commissioner Vu?
Here.
Commissioner Torres? Here. Commissioner Bika?
Here. Thank you, everyone. I don't know if did we have anybody signed up for public forum? We'll check on that. I should have checked it too, so sorry. No? Okay. So that takes us to our superintendent's report. Dr. Hardebeck.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to review the upcoming events for the school board. So tomorrow, from 6:30 to 8:30 at North High School, there will be a school board candidate forum, and it is sponsored by the Parent Advisory Council, North and Memorial Student Councils. On March 8th, there are two meetings. One is the budget development meeting, and the other, which is at 11 a.m. at the administration building, and the Chamber's School Board Candidate Forum, which is at 7 o'clock at the CVTC Claremont campus in the Business Education Center. On March 13th at 4 p.m. there's a meeting of the LEAP Committee. On March 15th at 4:30 there's a meeting of Demographic and Trends and Facilities. And both of those meetings are at the administration building. And then from March 19th to the 23rd, ECASD will be on spring break. And we will reconvene on March 26th with a meeting of policy and governance and a school board meeting later that evening. So I just wanted the board to know that last Thursday I represented the district at the Work Ready Community Kickoff, serving as a panel member to explain the initiative to local employers. Chippewa Valley Technical College hosted this event, and ECASD is working in partnership with the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce and CVTC to have Eau Claire County established as the first work-ready community in Wisconsin. As this initiative becomes a reality, CVTC and the Eau Claire Chamber would promote the post-secondary readiness and employability of our graduates. And this would be determined by how our students score on the ACT Work Keys assessment. This is an assessment that has been in place for a couple of years now. And sometimes I think that our students do not understand the value of the ACT Work Keys assessment. There are different levels, and with each level at kind of that go up in the amount or the number of jobs that you're qualified to do. And so if employers in Eau Claire were to use those Work Keys assessments as an indicator that we have a viable workforce and a highly qualified workforce in Eau Claire, it would make our community more attractive to economic development. So this is a big thing. I want to thank Drew Sevelin and Dave Oldenburg and Jim Schmidt for the work that they have done on this, because what we're already seeing is that 87% of our students are scoring at a level that in the 11th grade makes them eligible and qualified to do about 65% of the jobs in Eau Claire. So we want to move that score up, but this is a big thing, and it's a great indication of our collaboration as a community. The other thing, and you may be talking, are you going to talk about the Blue Ribbon Commission? Okay, so the Blue Ribbon Commission on School Funding will hold a public hearing at 2 p.m. on Monday, March 26th at 2121 Innovation Court in, is that De Pere? De Pere. Okay, I have to get my Wisconsin pronunciation. The commission is going to hear testimony from invited speakers about reforms to school funding in Wisconsin. Public testimony is limited to 5 minutes for each speaker, and the hearing will conclude at 6 p.m. But there are going to be other hearings scheduled across the state. This is a very important commission in terms of some of the concerns that we've had here in Eau Claire about the revenue caps, and people are being encouraged to go to these hearings and to testify. And there will be a list of the hearings and where they are held and the times on our webpage.
Yeah, can I add something? The one closest to Eau Claire, La Crosse was tonight, it got canceled. So I don't know, that might be close for board members or people in our community to go testify, because that'll be rescheduled. That was supposed to be tonight. Of course, we had a board meeting, so none of us could go. The next one that's closest to us is in Turtle Lake on May 21st from 1 to 6 o'clock. I think it's at CISA 11, and that would be the next closest. It's about 1 hour and 15 minutes, so it's kind of the same as you would drive to La Crosse. But that's not till May 21st. So I think that's the one I might be going to, so if anybody wants to go with me, feel free, okay?
And that concludes my report for the time being.
Thanks, Mary Ann. So that takes us on to my report, which I don't have much tonight, except that we are doing our forum at North on tomorrow. And then Thursday is one also by the Chamber at CVTC. And what time does that start? 7 o'clock, so people know that that's there. Do we have any board candidates in the audience this evening? Tim Nordine, you want to stand? You're running. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? And then our incumbents, Joe and Lori and Eric, are running as well. So thank you for coming. And that concludes my president's report. So it takes us to our student reports. Who's going first tonight? Ryan? Thank you.
Good evening. The plans are in place for tomorrow's school board candidate forum. Please be in the North High School auditorium at 6:30 p.m. if you would like to attend this event. There will be refreshments and candidate interactions to follow in the commons. The North High School Democratic Club is planning to lead a walkout on March 14th to stress to lawmakers on the necessity to ensure safety within our schools. To a lot of students at North, the specifics of the goals of the walkout, along with the organizational details, are unclear. While there is mixed support among the student body, all students are invited to join the walkout, and a high turnout is somewhat expected. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Lauren? Good evening.
Good evening. To tail off of what Ryan just said, many memorial organizations and clubs feel passionately about the walkout, and I know administration had a discussion about it Thursday, so I'm interested in talking with the memorial administration on what was learned and how that can all coordinate with the students' desire to have a peaceful protest that day. Otherwise, as Ryan also said, looking forward to the forum tomorrow. And then I'm sure many of you have heard at this point, but it was an exciting weekend for sports. And I'd just like to highlight how the Stars took first at the state hockey tournament. And I think that's really cool just because it's a co-op team between North Memorial and other local schools. So I just want to extend a congratulations to them.
There was excitement on TV, wasn't there? And when they got home, yeah. Thank you. That takes us to our school board committee reports. Does anybody have a report this evening? I know my reports were all last time. Anybody? Commissioner Luganbill?
I could share a brief one for policy and governance.
There you go. Thank you.
We met this morning and discussed our policy on the academic recognition system. We also discussed replacing our youth options policy with 2 new policies regarding early college credit programs and technical college course programs. You'll see those at future meetings. That's due to changes in state law. And we also discussed policy regarding administration of medication to students, some changes to that, and a policy on part-time open enrollment, which was out of commission for many years, and now it is back in law in the state. So discussing that. And finally, we discussed a draft letter regarding school safety that could be sent out from the board and superintendent.
Thank you, Commissioner Luganbill. And do you want to take it away with legislative update?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I'll start with that one. In last year's self-evaluation, we talked about wanting to have one voice as a board. And one way that we've done that is through our resolutions and other things that we've written as a board. So there's on your desk tonight a draft letter which could be signed by the school board and superintendent regarding school safety. And we can talk about that later during the work session, but I just wanted you all to have it in your hands and take a look at it. My only other updates is that there are a number of bills that have been passed in both houses and are ready to be delivered to Governor Walker's desk. Most of them are pretty small. One is regarding school board candidate signatures. It restores local control over the signature requirement. One is regarding hearing notices to schools. It basically just requires a couple more instances of notice regarding students who are CHIPS or JIPS placements within the circuit court system. There is one regarding certain college credit and high school dual enrollment programs and replacing those with early college credit programs, and we expected that, which is why we are working on policy on that as a committee. The sparsity aid payments to eligible districts and increasing the low revenue ceiling limit, that is going to be something that will help a lot of rural districts, and WASB really supported that, so that's a positive that will be signed by the governor. He's already stated he'll sign that. Another is regarding Robotics League participation grants, which creates a new grant program for schools with pupils in grades 9 through 12 to participate in robotics competitions. So maybe we'll have some folks get involved with that. One is regarding nutrition education. So this would require school boards to provide students with instruction about the vitamin content of food and the food and health values of dairy products. And finally, one regarding the publication of school and school district accountability reports, which will require the reports by November 30th rather than in September under existing law. So, brief report out of the Capitol.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for putting those all on the website as well. That takes us to the consent resolution agenda. Board members can pull for clarification or questions any items on this list, and I will entertain a motion to approve the following: the Human Resources Employment Report, the 5-year capital selected projects, I want to pull that, the referendum bid awards for Montessori Charter School, I'm going to pull that, referendum bid awards for Lakeshore Elementary, I'd like to pull that, a referendum bid awards for Mans Elementary, I'd like to pull that, and the referendum bid awards for North High School, I wanted to pull that. I have some general questions and then we'll just vote on it. And a referendum bid awards for Memorial High School, I'd like to pull that as well. Okay. Usually we can have one, but they were all separated out. So I have a couple questions relative to those, and then we will vote on them separately. And Abby and Larry know this already. So my question.
I'll move approval first of 7.2 through 7.3.
Okay. 7.2 only. I pulled all the rest.
Okay, I moved just one, I guess.
Okay, and then can we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Vu. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. And we, Marianne, do you want to speak a little bit to the Human Resources Report before we get to the other ones? Yep. And then we'll go on to the other questions.
Thank you. So tonight with the Human Resources Report, Employment Report, you approved several retirements, and we have 3 significant administrative retirements in the district this year, and I want to take this opportunity to recognize those 3 people. I'm going to start with Tim Libum. Tim came to the Eau Claire Area School District, and do you want to stand up, Tim, or do you feel like you have just like enough of a spotlight? Okay. I didn't want to give you that opportunity, though. Tim came to the Eau Claire Area School District in 1993 to hold the position of assistant principal at Memorial High School. He had previously served as an assistant principal for the Toma Area School District. the K-12 at-risk coordinator for the Toma Area School District, and a middle school social studies teacher at Chittix Junior High School in Normal, Illinois. For the 1997-98 school year, Tim was the interim principal at Memorial, and on July 1 of 1998, Tim officially became the principal at Memorial High School. And he served in that capacity until 2009, when he accepted his current position as the Executive Director of Administration. He received his bachelor in education from UW-Madison in 1984 and his master's in educational administration from UW-Madison in 1991. Within the past few years, Tim has assisted with the district with the participation in several committees and kind of several, I think, I would call them big ticket items within the school district, on the Employee Relations Committee, the LEAP Committee, and our Calendar Committee. But in the past 2 years, his focus has really been on the innovation zones. And he has, I think, made a significant contribution in the collaboration and moving forward with those zones. You know, I think that I can safely say that you may be leaving your position, but you won't be leaving the Eau Claire Area School District. We expect you to continue to contribute and participate, and although we'll miss working with you, we expect to see you around quite a bit, and we wish you all the best. So I knew if I told you that we were going to do this tonight, you wouldn't show up. So, surprise attack.
Way to go, Mary.
Our next person that we want to recognize is Andrew Teal. And Andrew is here. Andrew, would you stand? So, because you're in the back, we just need to, okay. Andrew joined the Eau Claire Area School District on August 21st, 1995 as a 5th grade teacher at Robbins Elementary School, after teaching for 8 years as a 4th and 6th grade teacher in Phoenix, Arizona. On August 10th, 1998, Andrew became the principal at Robbins Elementary School, where he has served since that time. Andrew obtained his bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse and his master's degree from Arizona State University. So, you know, typically when we do these kind of retirement things, we have a number of like positions that people have gone through in the district, and Andrew has been a steady rock at Robbins. And I think his staff is still grieving, knowing that he's leaving the principalship. I told them that we might find someone to fill his shoes or follow him, but we certainly wouldn't find anyone to replace him. Andrew has been a stalwart presence among the principals, certainly from the time that I've been here, and I think at the time before. And he's like one of those like worker bees. He's on every committee, kind of influencing decisions and making sure that we make the right decisions for kids. And he always puts kids first. He's been a member of the Compensation Committee, the Longevity Committee, the Elementary Interview Day Committee, the Hourly Evaluation Tool Committee, the Multi-Level Systems of Support Committee, and the Disproportionality Committee. And those are just to name a few of the things that he's been involved in. I met with his faculty, and they talked about Andrew, and they talked about how he's always puts kids first. And so we're going to miss you, Andrew. But somebody told me that I might see you around too. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your service, Andrew. And then the last person that we're going to recognize tonight is Dave Valk. Dave is not with us tonight, but don't worry, we'll get him at another time. I will tell you that he's retiring from Eau Claire after 30 years of service. He joined ECASD in 1988 as a physical education teacher at DeLong Middle School after teaching Phi Ed and science in Walnut Hill, Florida for 3 years. In August 1996, Dave became an associate principal at Memorial High School. He transferred to the role of principal at North Star Middle School in July 2001 before moving into his current position as principal of North High School in July 2006. Dave obtained his bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire and his master's degree from Winona State University. Dave is also someone who has given a great deal of his time to the district in several areas of improvement. A few of the committees that he's recently participated on include the Strategic Planning Committee, the Start Time Committee, and the Calendar Committee. I think Dave is regarded as a leader among principals. He certainly has been a leader in the development of school improvement planning, in the literacy work at the high schools. He's been a spokesperson for the academic and career planning. You saw some of his work with the HOPE program just lately, and he has really moved that idea of every student having a post-secondary experience before they leave high school. He has made that a reality at North High School. And all of these efforts have really been around closing the gap. And Dave has been a significant leader in closing the gap at Memorial High School, and he is going to be missed.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And that, thank you, everyone. I always am sad when people retire. To this day, that makes me sad because I know the amount of time and effort people have given to our district. So that takes us on to my questions as far as the things that I pulled from the consent agenda. And I guess a couple of my questions, and I don't, you'll try, Abby. Yeah, we kind of talked about it already a little bit. So when I went through the information that we received in our board packet, again, I think I brought this up before, and I just want some clarification. I don't think there's anything wrong, is as I went through and highlighted the low paving bid, the second low paving bid, the low bidder on each site, recommended awards to the low bidder in each category. I understand what that means, but I want to put it in a bigger picture, I guess, and ask the question that when we take the lowest bid, are there any differences other than money? Is there differences in materials, the time? And, you know, I looked at the secure entrances pieces and noted that they're not always the same people doing them. I would imagine there's different, people need different things at different buildings, right? But I also have been doing a lot of reading, especially when we're thinking about and have had experiences on learning environments. And so, you know, entryways as art, places to hang art, you know, for secured entrances to make them look not like secured entrances, but maybe part of the building. And I know maybe you have those conversations. I just think as a board member, I'd like to know what that looks like. Also, there's a lot of roofs on here, but I've been reading a lot about garden roofs and learning environments even there. We've had people talk about science and lead the way in the sense of solar heating and those kinds of things. I just wanted to ask, given these bids, what does it mean by the low bid, and are those conversations we're having, I guess?
I'll tell you as much as I can tell you, and then we'll have Larry come up as well because he can expand on them. But when we put out the projects for bid, we're very specific in what we're looking for. The timeline's included, the materials that our expectations are included, the warranty is included, the specs are included. As much information as we can put in there is part of that process. And so when we put it out there and we post it, it's a very large document because we specify out everything that we want. So when we get them back, we're making a lot of assumptions that they can do it in the timeline, they're using our materials, they're following our specs. And so when we're evaluating them, we are evaluating on price because we've set forth the expectation of here's the work that needs to be done, here's what it looks like, here's our expectations. We assume that if you're bidding on it, you can meet all of those things requested in our bid. So it really does come down to price and really being fiscally responsible for ourselves and to our community and our taxpayers because, again, that goes to our budget and we levy taxes on that. And so I know that sometimes there's some optional things that we may look at and put in the specifications, but we don't always go with them because we're trying to get a feel for, is this a better option? How much more money does that cost us? And so those are always components within that big spec sheet, but basically we lay everything out very specific and detailed down to what our expectations are. And so when we open the bids and review them, we are looking at price and putting that all together and see how does that impact our budget. As far as conversations, as far as secure entrances go, the principals are usually involved in that conversation. There may be other staff members involved with that, but I know that Larry and his team works very closely with the principals and the architects, and they go back to the drawing board 2 or 3 times at a minimum just to review those plans and look at here's a need that we've got. How do we make it work best for the building and try to fit within the budget that we have allowed to that as well, because that is something that we need to be very conscientious of because we know we have this amount of money we need to work with, and so how does that look like? And these plans, a lot of them have been in the works for 4 or 5 years, and so yeah, there's latest and greatest and there's some new things that we can do, but those conversations are happening at the building level and on multiple occasions. And as construction's going on as well, there's weekly meetings with the contractors and buildings and grounds, and then the principals are invited to those meetings as well to help answer any questions that they may have or address any concerns that at that point in time that they're going on. So I'm not sure about conversations on different types of learning spaces. That one I'd have to defer to Larry. I think I've answered the rest of your questions though. So we'll have Larry come up and he can talk about that optional learning spaces.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Commissioner Duax.
While he's coming up, didn't Memorial get solar panels donated to the, did I hear you say that one time that Memorial got solar panels for the roof?
There was an offer made to the district after the study of the proposal. It was my recommendation not to accept that. So I guess going back to the award of the projects, etc., I'd like to give a little bit of history on, or knowledge on the process. You're pretty familiar with the RFP processes. A bid process is different. When you put out an RFP, you're stating this is what we're looking for, or this is the need of the client. How can you meet that? Well, in the construction industry with our projects, we have a different process which is called the bid process. You probably have all seen the plans that architects prepare. Probably a little less evident is a book like this that we call the spec book, or in the industry it's called the Bible. The spec book is made of 2 sections. The first part is a smaller section in the front, which we call the front end. In that area, we detail how the contractors are to bid the project, what are our requirements, how are changes handled, how are payments made throughout the process, how is communication handled. So all of the processes are detailed there. The larger section is called the technical sections. So of every product that goes into the building is specified in this book. And I'll use windows as an example. So in the windows section, it's going to tell you what testing standards they have to meet. It's going to say what the thickness of the glass is. Is it tinted? Is there a warranty? Is there any special coatings on that? What is the warranty? How is the product made? And then how is that incorporated and built into the project? So for every product that goes in, whether it's doors, windows, roofing, tile, That's all described in the technical specifications. So there really is no question from the contractor when they're bidding the project. Everyone's bidding the same warranties, the same quality of product. If they have a different product they want to use, they have the ability to contact us and say, will you approve this product? We review it to make sure that it meets the minimum requirements before we approve that. And if it doesn't meet it, then it doesn't get approved. So in the bid process that we use in construction, everything's already defined. So the only thing that's left is, what price are you going to do the project for us? So that's why we have the bid process. Now, the simple answer is that we reward based upon the low bid. The more technical response is we look at all the bids. The low bidder is the first person we look at. If there's a significant difference between that price and the next lowest bidder, we'll have a conversation with them prior to ever bringing that award forward to make sure, number one, their bid is complete, number two, they haven't used an inferior product or a different warranty that allowed them to submit a lower price. So we have that conversation to make sure that their bid is comparable to everyone else. The second thing to note about the projects is the state statutes require that they provide bonding for the project. So what bonding is, it's called a performance payment bond, and it's 100% of the project cost. So there's an insurance company that's backing up the contract and the contractor. So if the contractor defaults during the project, the bonding company steps in, will complete the rest of the project for no additional cost to the owner. And I said that's a state requirement for state-funded projects, government or public-sponsored projects. So that's a second step that ensures our project. Now, second of all, with that, bonding companies will only bond a contractor up to a level that they feel comfortable for that contractor. You can't become a contractor and expect to be awarded a $10 million project your first time out. You start at a lower level. As you become more successful or stay successful in that, you gradually will do larger projects. The bonding company sees that you're performing well and will start bonding them at a higher level. So an example, you know, a smaller contractor will get a bonding level maybe of $1 million, where Markin & Johnson can do a bonding for a $100 million project. So, you know, the bonding company is an insurance company that's not going to let the contractor do a project larger than what the insurance company is willing to risk the payment for. So, you know, there is a cost to that bond, but as I said, it's required by state statutes, and that cost is incorporated into the cost of them doing the project, as is every other contractor. So we go through that process. Second of all, if we get a low bid from a contractor we haven't used before, we'll do a background check on them. We'll check to see what's the largest projects they've done, what level of equipment and manpower they have available. Have they done similar projects? Have they defaulted on a project in the last 5 years? So we do all that background check for contractors we're not have experience with prior to bringing any of those awards forward. So it's a rather complex process, and sort of hopefully my simple explanation of it.
That's extremely helpful, though. Thank you. And anybody else have a question? No? Thanks, Larry. That was extremely helpful. Thank you. Would someone like to move 7.3 to 7.8?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Harder. Can I have a second? Second by Commissioner Duax. Can we take a roll call bid, please, Patty? Thank you.
Commissioner Vu,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Bika,
Yes.
Commissioner Duax,
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Harder,
Yes.
Commissioner Luginbill.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. That takes us to our individually considered resolutions. The first one on is 8.1, High School Culinary Labs Project in 5-year capital plan. Who's doing that one? Abby? Okay, thank you. Nice PowerPoint. We all kind of looked at it already.
So while Abby's getting set up, one of the things I think the board has asked us to look at this project and review it several times because of the cost of the project. And I know Dave Oldenburg has had several meetings with the planning committee, and the project has gone through several iterations. This is yet again another iteration. So as Abby goes through the PowerPoint and talks to you about what this particular proposal is, you know, we want you to again ask questions and you know, do the what ifs in terms, because it is a very costly project. Any way you look at it, even, you know, just a costly project. We want to do it right.
All right. So I have some helpers in the audience tonight if we have questions that I can't answer. So we're fully prepared to answer the questions tonight. So two board meetings ago, we had talked about the project, and so we were given some direction to look at the project again and see if there's any cost that could be identified that we could trim from the budget, and what would that look like. So we do have some more information tonight that we want to share with you. So the culinary lab projects, they benefit both the students and our community, and so we want to walk through the plan adjustments that we've got before you tonight. When we talk about benefits for students, it would mean improved safety, improved options to participate, and experience. And I'll share some more detail on that as we go through the slides. First of all, when we talk about safety, these are pictures of the current labs. And so if we look at the labs on the left-hand side, you can see that there's walls in between the labs, so specifically right here. And so that makes it hard from a supervision standpoint and also from a teaching standpoint, because with that wall there, you can have students on both sides of the wall and not be able to be in two places at once to physically see what's going on. And then in this picture, you can see the stoves are all very close to one another. And so again, some concerns with that, and then the space as well. If we try to get 4 to 6 students around that, you know, it's in a very small space, and that can be challenging. And so this is a picture of one of the proposed layouts, and having the station right in the middle and lots of space and open space around, so it gives you an idea of what that looks like. And if we look at how does that tie to our strategic plan, this one specifically speaks to priority 2.1, which is maintaining safe and supportive learning environments. Improved participation hits 3 of our strategic priorities. 1.3, which is preparing every student to be college and career ready. Provide experiences and instruction that address the needs and growth of the whole child, and promote and support strong staff and student relationships. In improved participation, what that means, and we've talked about this, is that we're limiting the numbers of students that can participate in those programs currently because we have space issues and also some time issues. And so wanting to be able to expand that to have more opportunities for students. And some of the participation is limited based upon the equipment that we've got and the quantity of the equipment as well. Improved experience, we would be able to provide more hands-on, some more accessible, and some more relevant experiences as well. Again, we're hitting strategic priority 1.3, 2.1, and 5.3. If we talk about hands-on education, culinary courses are a route to success for students who may struggle in a traditional environment and who might want a different learning experience and a different type. And so this gives them some diversity to look at that and have that as an option in their high school career. When we talk about accessibility and the numbers that can be reached, I know we talked a lot last time about the numbers of students that are impacted for those secondary culinary courses. And you can see that between both schools, culinary arts is over half of the students that are taking that. And that's 411 students in the 17-18 year. The final proposal that we're going to present tonight would result in 2 lab spaces for both buildings, and then the programming would be accessible to all students and not just focusing on the ones that are looking at having a career in food preparation down the road. One of the things that's a safety concern at North is that the students are currently cooking on portable butane burners. And those portable butane burners make it limited opportunities for students with disabilities because just the level that they're on, and you have a safety concern with that as well. And we've been talking about this kind of looks like a camping stove and thinking of what our students are actually experiencing in that class.
I think it's a great picture for school funding.
It is. This is true. Revised spaces would enable students to achieve that ProStart certification, which we've been talking about a lot. And it also aligns the industry. Kitchen spaces would enable students to get that taste of what is it like for catering within the community and for community members. Some of the partners in the ProStart education, we learned last week that if a student goes through our curriculum, they can earn up to 10 credits at Stout going in. So that's a big deal when we talk about that post-secondary success. And then also partnering with Chippewa Valley Technical College because we know that they have a new lab over there as well. Obviously, updating equipment. We've been talking about that. And so this is a better picture, more close-up picture of the ranges at Memorial and then the proposed, going from a residential up to a commercial. And the commercial one that is included in the price is that middle of the row. It's a step up from a residential, but it's not, top of the line commercial. And then when we look at North, again, they have the butane heaters, and you can see the space that the kids are working in. That picture at North is actually of some pizza ovens that the kids use, and I understand that they take about 45 minutes to warm up, and so we end up leaving them on all day to keep them warm. And so again, that could be a safety issue, could be impacting our electric bills. So lots of things that we don't talk about that when you really start digging into it does have an impact on the budget. And then again, moving to a more commercial type stove. When we talk about functionality of the equipment, again, this is in one of the labs that we have a stove that we don't even use because the handle is broken, it appears, and there's some other issues with it, so we're not using it all. So it's just taking up space. And then on the left-hand side, that's a picture of a griddle. And my understanding is that it's too high for us to reach, so we don't even use it. So again, when we talk about a safety piece, if we can bring that down, where we can see it, then we're able to use equipment that we've got instead of it just sitting there taking up space. If we talk about benefits for the community, again, we have a lot of student interest in a high needs area of expertise. And then it also provides the opportunity for students to be more prepared for that post-secondary success related to the culinary career. We talk about interest in high needs areas. This is right from the Department of Workforce Development that the food prep and service jobs, there's going to be 18,441 jobs in our area of the state by 2022. That's huge. That's a big impact. And so if we can, again, work with our community and work with our parents to give these opportunities for kids, we're just, again, giving them some more opportunities in their post-secondary careers and education. The ProStart curriculum has been designed to give students that education aligned with skills that employers are looking for. So our adjusted proposal, we wanted to let you know who worked on that. So we had some people from academic services, buildings and grounds, our family and consumer science teachers, review the plans with a kitchen consultant who is a member of the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, who has also been active on our hospitality committee and so has kind of been there through this whole process. So the adjusted proposal for Memorial is to build the baking and pastry lab, and that would give Memorial 2 cooking areas. Currently, Memorial only has 1, and so they only can fill it 7 hours a day because that's all their capacity allows for right now. And unfortunately, right now, they're asking for more than 7 sections, and they're continually having to turn students away because we can only fill that lab for 7 hours a day. When we talk about North, we recommend renovating the culinary lab to address those safety concerns, and that was the griddle and the stoves and the butane stoves that they're working off of. Camp stoves, thank you. So I know we've been very clear with the board that if we are going to get any construction completed by 18-19, at the beginning of the year, we need a decision made tonight so we can move forward with that. And so the adjusted proposal, which is I know what you've been waiting for, based upon the team working with the kitchen person from the committee, we've estimated we can cut 10% of the cost from construction. And so if you remember, the 2 labs, the construction piece was $700,000. And so we're estimating that we can cut about 10% or $72,000, bringing that cost of construction down to $628,000. Still recommend purchasing the range and the stoves for next year due to those safety concerns. It's not like we can just take out the stoves and put them in, because there's heating and venting and some other hooding and venting that needs to be taken care of before we can get that in. And so that's why that's on the list, and we had talked about that last time as well. And so by doing that, then what we would be saying is that we would make the total cost of the project $649,200 for the 18-19 year, and then we defer the rest of the equipment into being purchased in 19-20. And just to refresh your memory, and this is, I know, kind of small, but basically the equipment list is about $148,000, and the red circled items are the ranges and the stoves, and that's what we would recommend moving forward with for 18-19. And then the rest, again, we'd have that opportunity to work with our community and solicit donations on getting some of those things, and we'd put them out to bid and things like that, but that would wait until 19-20. I know one of the questions that we talked about in budget development was, why don't we recommend doing one lab next year and then the other lab the next year? And because of the significant safety concerns and with the space at North, it was hard to say that that was more important than access for Memorial students. And so we talked a lot about that, but we could not make a recommendation because we felt very strongly about both of them, and they're both district priorities. And so we felt that would better be a conversation at the board level. And so again, just to reiterate, the proposal was that what we would look at is doing the revised construction plans and that stove and ranges for a total of $649,200 for the 18-19 year. So we can open it up for questions.
Any questions from the board? Clarifications? Commissioner Luginbill.
Just wondering, in terms of the discussion about I completely trust what this group is saying in terms of what the needs are. I'm wondering, because there are folks from the WRA at that table, what that conversation was about donations, and if we got any sort of commitment or kind of an idea of what that could look like and at what level moving forward.
Do one of you two want to come and address that? Because I wasn't part of the conversation. Yeah, please.
So yeah, good question. There were a ton of conversations. Actually, every one of the advisory meetings that we had, this was something that they volunteered. They specifically did not volunteer dollar amounts. And what they said over and over and over again is that they cannot help with the construction cost. That they're more than happy to help with equipment purchases. So this is one of the reasons why we're recommending going forward with construction and the really essential pieces of equipment. But obviously the next step would be going to them and asking for contributions when it comes to the equipment purchases, which we're fairly confident that we're going to get. Okay.
Commissioner Duax.
Does the price include the baking component?
So the original proposal was that there was a baking and pastry lab at each building and a culinary project at each building. So this proposal specifically would do the baking and pastry at Memorial and the culinary at North. So one lab at each building. In the big plan, you know, there was 2 labs at each building because both labs need to be dealt with.
Right.
So this is 1 and 1.
So it's, the first year is $649,200 and the 126,370 is for 1920.
Yep, that's just the equipment
Yeah, okay.
for 1920.
All right.
Commissioner Harder.
And so there's no, I think we saw a version of this plan at one point where between the baking lab and the culinary, it was a 1.2 million total over the course of a couple of years.
Correct.
Now we're saying the request here is the baking lab needs are incorporated into this, and there's not a later down the road kind of ask for baking lab, or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, there still will be an ask down the road.
Okay, and do we have a sense of the size of that?
I do not. Do you?
Yeah, I can take a shot at it. And really, this isn't going to decrease the deferred costs. So the costs that you're deferring that you talked about last time are still there. What this does, though, is it builds the baking and pastry lab at Memorial and then the culinary lab at North in really strategic ways, so that when the next half of that project for both schools, when we're ready to go forward with completing the entire project, it's going to be more affordable. So one of the things that that original project said was, and the numbers were a little bit different for the two schools, but roughly it had $350,000 for the first piece of it, which at that point was going to be the culinary piece at both schools. Then about $250,000 for the second piece. It doesn't really matter which lab you build first. The first chunk is going to be more expensive because of the infrastructure that you're putting in. But we're going to tap in and use that infrastructure for the second part of that too. So it's going to be more affordable to do the second part. It'll obviously be even more affordable if we get more contributions when it comes to equipment and things like that that can help as well. But no, the costs that are being deferred are still out there.
And just, do we have a sense of this, what the scale of that cost is and how it's broken down between equipment and construction, or is that not clear yet?
Well, we haven't priced out and even made a list for the baking and pastry equipment yet, because we had been focused on the culinary. I would expect and anticipate it's similar to, we had about $150,000 for the culinary pieces. I don't know if you've had any conversations.
No, so I mean, and I wouldn't want to speculate as to any hard number. It would be more affordable, so you'd be looking at somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 for the construction piece of that. It might be a little bit lower, but probably not significantly. And then the equipment piece of that really comes down to contributions from outside parties, and then what we're looking at as far as absolutely necessary equipment too, when we go through that as well. So I'm sorry, there's no real hard number.
Sure, but, and when we talk about 200, roughly some 100,000 ballpark for construction, is that at 200,000 each site?
Yeah, I'm sorry, so that would be 200,000 per site.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Commissioner Dweck?
Is the plan, Abby, to take the money out of the buildings and grounds, the 1.6 that we have every year?
Yes, if we move forward with the construction, the 649,200 would be part of the capital improvement plan, because we've only approved 900,000 so far in projects. Actually, we approved a couple of them earlier tonight. There's still a couple that are out there for bid, but yes, that would be part of that 1.6.
Commissioner Luganbill?
I'll just say thank you for working on this. And I know one thing that I had mentioned at the last meeting, I think, was wanting to see this being broken down a little bit into phases, and I appreciate that it appears that you're doing that here. And I mean, if administration is recommending this and wants us to do this, I'm inclined to believe you and go with it. And I'm assuming that just along with that, administration will be willing to work with the school board on getting creative and working on our budgetary situation. But I mean, for the sake of student safety and access for students, as you say here, two priorities, I'll support your recommendation tonight.
Commissioner Bika?
Yes, thinking about benefits to the community, I'm reminded of the enrollment data that Jim Schmidt provided to us, that the program enrolls in terms of historically underserved students. I'm thinking specifically of students of color in very solid numbers. And this is a program that is, we've been talking about project-based, multidisciplinary, integrative, and I hope it's one we can support.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Luganbill?
I move approval of this proposal as presented on the slide.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Vu. Any other comments? Can we take a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Vu?
Yes.
Commissioner Torres?
Yes.
Commissioner Bika?
Yes.
Commissioner Duax?
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Harder?
Yes.
Commissioner Luginbill.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you for the information. That's just what we needed. Thanks, Drew. That takes us on to the health insurance renewal for 2018 and 19, and I think, Abby, that you're up again.
It's me.
Thank you.
It's going to be one of those nights where you get to see and hear from me a lot tonight.
That's okay.
All right. So our health insurance renewal, we have been waiting on this, and we've been talking a lot about it. And so we're here to present tonight that our renewal for the 5th year of our contract is at 10%. And I just wanted to remind the board that the last 4 years we had a guaranteed renewal of 5% for our HMO plan and 9% for open access. And that was, again, if we met some qualifications within that proposal, and we were able to do that every year. I also wanted to make sure that the board was aware that medical trend for the last 4 years on average has been an 8% increase. And so by having the 5% and the 9%, we were getting a 3% gain because that HMO plan, which was the bulk of our plans, we were getting a cost savings on that. And so with that 10% renewal increase, that would cost us just over $2 million for the 18-19 school year. And we've all been talking about our budget impact. And so that led us to the conversation of how do we make this affordable for our budget? And so we have been reviewing some potential plan design changes for well over a year to try to minimize that impact not only to the district but also to the employees. And so for the 18-19 school year, we are recommending an increase in our deductible from $3,000, $6,000 to $4,000, $8,000. That will save us $953,000 of that $2 million increase. And then the other thing that we recommended doing this year was adding a Tier 4 prescription charge for our employees. And so it used to be generics were free and you'd have a $25 copay if the prescription drug fit in this box, or $50 if it fit in kind of a Tier 3. There's many drugs out there that have gotten very expensive. Some of them are costing $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 each time that prescription is filled. And at only having our employees pay $50 for that, our insurance is taking a big portion of that cost and therefore increasing our utilization. And so I would say probably across the board, that's what a lot of industry and school districts are making changes. Is they're adding a 4th tier prescription charge, and we are adding a maximum of $250 to that for that 4th tier, and that would be for those very highly expensive drugs that are very important to our staff and needed for medically necessary. And so by adding that 4th tier, that will also gain the district $211,000 over the course of the year. And then because our premium is going up, again, our employees will still pay 12.6%, but that is offset by the district's percentage of that 87.4, so we need to take that off. So the impact for this renewal to our budget is $771,000. And so the last slide that I wanted to share with you was to talk about how does that impact our employees. And so I wanted to break it out because we have 3 different plans, and I wanted to just make the board aware of how does that impact our employees. And so currently under our 17-18 policy, if I have a single plan, I'm paying $90 a month for that health insurance. And so if I have an employee and spouse, an employee and children, I'm paying $187 a month. And if I have family coverage, it's $232. And so with these changes on a single plan, I'm going to pay $3 more a month. I'm going to pay $93 if I have a single plan, and it's going to be $195, I think, if I have the employee and spouse, and then it'll go up to $242 for a family plan. So what I did was I broke it down so you could see the yearly increase, because I know that we are looking at monthly and also a yearly. And so it's an annual increase for the employee on a single plan of $36 a year, $96 a year for employee and spouse, and $120 a year for the family. So we just wanted to highlight that for you and see if there was any questions. And if there's not, then we would ask you to make a motion to approve this so we can start working on open enrollment.
Do you have any questions? Seeing none, motion? Go ahead.
I move
Commissioner Drax.
approval of the proposal for health insurance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Torres. Any other comments? Then we can take a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Vu,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Bika,
Yes.
Commissioner Duax,
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck Boyle,
Yes,
Commissioner Harder,
Yes.
Commissioner Luganville.
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of discussion has gone into that.
Can I ask, if, sorry, and this is me probably asking from the perspective of a new person, but if someone in the district wanted more information about models that were considered and so forth, and the best person to contact would be,
Probably me. Send them my way, and if I can't help them, Kay and I'll figure it out.
okay, thank you.
Okay, you're
you.
welcome.
Thanks, Abby. That takes us to our adjourn to committee. Our first committee report is the employee handbook modifications. Is that you too, Abby? You're taking over tonight. Thanks.
Yep, I'm pinch hitting. Kay had to step out tonight, and so she asked if I could present the changes, and so I said I could do that. So, Patty, were we going to pull these up? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. So every year, we bring forward to the board some employee handbook modifications. Sometimes we end up bringing them a couple times a year because we find things that need to be clarified and we missed them in the update. So tonight, we have 18 of them, and I will just walk through them. They're numbered for you, and they're also highlighted in blue, so that way then you can see specifically what those changes are. And so
Can we ask questions as you go?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. all
Yeah,
right.
that would be great. So the first change has to deal with the FMLA Act. And so we used to direct them to go to the Human Resources FMLA page, but we're actually directing them to Employee Online because that's where all of the information that they need it can be found. So that's, again, we're just updating where that paperwork is located. Number 2 is updating the emergency school closure list. Some of our job titles have changed, and so we wanted to get them to match what our current job titles are. And so you can see assistant principal / athletic director has been added. That was not on the list before, and that was because there's so many things that are happening with athletics and needing to be rescheduled. That's why they got added. We removed the word elementary in front of principals because all of our principals are now 12 months. And so just kind of that standard common language. The financial systems manager, that job title has been updated to be the systems engineer that is responsible for human finance and human resource systems. Sorry, I can't read tonight. And then the last change is just updating the student information to say student information specialist to match the job description.
So
Item number 3, we had talked about this just a couple board meetings ago, and that was to remove the language that said the first pay period of the year needs to be after September 1st. So we recommended just taking that language out completely. And so that's why you don't have any blue there. Number 4 is about personal leave. There was some confusion as to what were the first 10 days and the last 10 days of the year. And so we decided to just, before we had said 2 weeks prior to the end of school year, and there were some questions as to what does that look like. And then that also prompted the conversation about, do we need to have something at the beginning of the year, because that's also an important time for our staff to be in front of our kids starting a brand new school year. So when we took this to the Employee Relations Committee, they just recommended saying the first 10 and last 10 days of student contact, because everybody is very aware of when those student contact days are. If we look at number 5, this is a new section that's
Go
being
ahead, Commissioner
added.
Rika.
Can I ask a
Oh,
question
I'm
on
sorry,
number 4?
yes.
So in reading out about the personal leave, and I'm thinking from the perspective of an employee, how would I know that those practices were equitable? So for example, up to 40 staff that ask for a substitute before a school vacation. I don't know, I was looking for something procedurally there, I guess that was some kind of insurance of equity, but
Sure. I think that, the request, I'll go through HR when it's on those first 10 days. And typically when we hit 40, if there's anything that comes in after that, there's usually a discussion among executive team to say, what should we do? And this is very specific for people that require a substitute. And so there could be other people that perhaps work in this building or even at the service center that aren't required to get a sub, so it doesn't apply to them. I don't know how to ensure that it's applied equitably other than there's just the process, and once they hit 40, then they're discussed if an exception can be made or not. And I think part of it is because of the volume of subs, and then there's last minute things that come up, and so we always try to make sure that we have subs available to cover so we don't have classrooms uncovered on those days.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Duax.
Well, I think when we discussed this long ago, when we first did the handbook, we talked about that they would keep track, like you couldn't do it every year, and they would make sure that it was more equitable that way, that you couldn't be gone to Europe in August, every year, even if you turned your request in early. But I don't know if they have any fine points on that.
I'm not sure. That would be more of a Kate question, and we could ask and follow up with you.
Does that happen very often?
Where we hit 40?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little more common than you would expect.
So a follow-up on that might be good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just going to make a note so we don't forget about that. Okay, number 5, you can see there's a lot of blue language added, and that we needed to write in because we refer to it as the Duff Clause, because that helps employees who need to maintain their employment with the district in order to meet criteria for those government obligations. And so I know that sounds really funny and you're giggling, but that's really where it came from, because we need to grant, that person a leave of absence in order to hold that job, and they need to be affiliated with the school district. So maybe funny, but that's where it came from. So full disclosure.
It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. So then if we look at number 6, we just wanted to create some handbook language that reflects our practice. And a lot of times that's when we're bringing handbook changes to you. That's what it is we're updating that language to match what we're currently doing. And so basically the language lets them know, the employees know to expect that survey. And then if they want to speak with someone directly, that's kind of their cue and their opportunity to do that as part of an exit survey or interview strategy to help us learn more about why are our employees leaving us, and is there something that we can do differently to help with that retaining piece of our strategic plan.
Commissioner Vu?
So with number 6, most of the time they don't want to volunteer, but what is the incentive or the leverage for them to participate?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think that the interviews that we have been helpful for us, and I think that it helps us look at things and what can we do different. I'm not really sure if there is an incentive, but we offer the opportunity to everybody just to make sure that they know we value their opinion and we do want to hear from them.
I'd like to make a comment on that too, because I pulled that out of here too, Commissioner Vu, is can we know how many people retire, and you would know how many did an exit interview. I think that kind of data would be important for us to have. And I know that it says here, and this isn't partly to do with the school board, but I think that the information gleaned from exit interviews, as much as I've gone to some of those workshops, is good to inform us as to past practice in the future or whatever, that information would be provided to the school board.
Okay.
Thanks. Anybody else have a comment? No? Okay, thanks.
Okay, number 7, we're just updating the advance notice for someone that's leaving to give to us. Right now it's 14 days, and we're asking to change that to 30 days to give us more time to fill possession, to fulfill positions. And I think that's standard when we look to other districts. Many of them, 30 days notice was the common. So it's really just allowing us to have a little bit more time and opportunity to fill the positions.
I just have a question.
Oh,
Commissioner Duex, I'm
What
sorry.
does exempt mean? I'm sorry.
what is exempt?
Yeah, exempt non-supervisory employees.
Exempt non-supervisory employees are going to be people that have individual contracts. And so exempt, that might be our, I'm trying to think about, it's our certified staff, but perhaps it could be our nurses as well, because they're, they would have a contract. It's basically going to be our certified staff. It's not going to impact administrators. There's a there's a separate section that talks to them specifically. You're welcome. Number 3 within that same number was really giving us the right to collect professional development. So if we have a teacher that we hire and we send them to training and then they leave within the first 9 months, I believe it is, then we can have the right to say, well, we sent you to all this training, spent all this money, and now you're leaving us. We would like to be able to collect that cost of that professional development back. So by adding that number 3 in there, that gives us the opportunity to do that. We have been in that situation a couple of times, and so the committee felt it was very important to get language in there to try to help prevent that from happening if possible. You're welcome. The next number is 8. And again, we're really just updating the language to match the retirement deadline date. And so in the past it was April, but now it's been March. And so we just needed to get the language updated here to match. And so that's why there's the 2 changes to March 1st from April 1st. 9. That's just a typo that we had. We referred the non-renewal language back to section 3.03, and it's actually section 3.02. So that's just getting it updated. Number 10, again, is updating the language to talk about and mirror our new salary schedule. So it talks about things that aren't relevant anymore because our salary structure has changed. And so that's just updating if you're transferring, what does that look like and how is that impactful to you? Number 11, the bodily fluid increment. We've had a lot of discussion about this one internally as well as with the ERC. And so what we found is that the increment was being asked for quite often. And so we had to clarify what's a regular basis. And so we've been working with Mandy to try to help us identify what that should be. And so within that, we're changing it to recommend that it's part of their daily basis, so that way it's a task that they're doing every single day. And then also any of those requests would filter through Mandy before they came to HR, because what was happening is they were going to HR and then HR was reaching out to Mandy first for approval. So we just, again, made the language mirror what we want the process to be, so that way we're not passing it back and forth a lot. And the special ed department has much more knowledge on when that increment should be given versus us trying to assume that we understand what the position requires.
I had a question on that one, though, and maybe
Okay.
it's because things are different, but I had an instance where, and maybe teachers would be doing this then, would be the rectal Valium, which would not be needed daily. So that would mean that a special education assistant would not be assigned to doing that. That would be educators who did that?
It's actually the healthcare assistants that do that. So the last line that says employees other than healthcare assistants will neither be requested nor required to administer rectal Valium or any other non-oral medication.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Section 12. This is getting some language out there about incremented positions. This has been talked about a lot, and we realized several years ago that we were not in compliance with the FLSA laws when it comes to coaching in incremented positions, because you're just paid a flat dollar amount and we're not tracking the hours. And if we have an hourly employee, then to be in compliance with FLSA, we really need to be tracking those hours and counting those hours for overtime. And so basically, we're just putting the language into our handbook to mirror our current practice, and that our hourly employees are not eligible to serve in those incremented positions. And so that's what the language there is representing.
Could I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
I know maybe a year and a half ago we talked about this specific to the hourly folks who wanted to be a coach.
Yep.
And kind of that legal ambiguity there. And I know that we said at that time that a good step maybe would be to actually contact the IRS directly and try to get guidance on that. I'm just wondering if that occurred, because I know that it probably couldn't hurt to ask, you know, can hourly folks be coaches in this capacity?
Right.
So just wondering, because I know that we'd mentioned that in a board meeting, but it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Just wondering if that ever.
It's not an IRS connection at all. It doesn't have anything to do with the IRS.
So it would be
has
U.S.
to do.
Department of Labor?
It's the Department of Labor, and we've actually received several legal opinions on it, and there's a very fine line, and the reason why we don't do it is because needing to track those hours and paying overtime, we could actually pay our coaches more than what the value of that position is. And even if they're assistant coach, because it's hourly, you could end up paying more, and then that creates an inequity and lots of additional problems. And then how do you track all of the hours? And they probably spend more hours than, you know, because the compensation's a flat dollar amount. And so we moved away from that several years ago, and it's unfortunate, but many districts are in the same boat as we are for that.
Okay. Yeah, it is too bad we can't.
Yeah, because that does, do we have hourly employees that can't coach anymore because of that?
Yeah, so when the change was made, they were allowed to be grandfathered in, but we won't hire any new hourly employees into that. So we didn't take it away, but if they were to step down or resign, we wouldn't fill it back in with a hourly person. Okay, number 13. Really, that's just, again, updating job description titles and kind of the work schedules. And a lot of those changes happened when we updated our compensation model and our compensation schedule. I think most of you will remember that our principals went to 12 months, and then instead of listing out all the different directors, we just have on our compensation schedule, they're referred to as directors of teaching and learning. So that's why we just have one line for them. And then again, just adding those positions that are on a 12-month or an 11-month or a 10-month and just clarifying what does that look like. And then again in item B, on that same one, again, the blue is new. And so basically just saying it's talking about that the principal will be on duty during the time school is in session and for 2 weeks before and after the regular school year, and exceptions to the expectation would be approved by Dr. Hardebeck. And so that's just putting it out there so that way our staff knows that this is what the expectation is, and if it's different, then you need to work with your supervisor. If we look at number 14, post-employment benefits by hire date. Again, just updating that stipend language to mirror our current salary schedule. It used to be based upon master's degree and bachelor's degree and things like that, and we don't have that anymore. We just have an administrator salary. So that's reflective of our practice. Section 15, again, just some more title updates. We don't have a head of instruction anymore because it's a principal. And then HR coordinator is actually the HR manager. And then you can see some of the technology positions they fall under one bucket of technology coordinator. And then, again, under group 5, we've updated that to say American Indian Education Coordinator, again, matching the job descriptions. Number 16, in letter A, we were able to take out with the exception of head of instruction, because again, that's a principal, and so we don't need to separately identify that any longer. And that was, just in case you're wondering, that was McKinley. Their description was head of instruction for quite some time, but it's actually a principal. So again, that's referring to McKinley, and we're just updating that out. And then number 17, again, throughout the document, those are just title updates to mirror our current job descriptions. I don't know if there's any questions on any of that. And then the last one was just some added language for crossing guards. basically what we learned in the old days, that crossing guards were part of non-affiliated, and they got lumped in with non-affiliated because they didn't have a contract, weren't part of a union group, and so some of the things are very different for crossing guards just because of the nature of their jobs and the times that they work and things like that. So we just decided it would be best to have a separate section that talked about crossing guards, and so the language here, it's exactly what we do for crossing guards, and we just gave them their own section in the employee handbook to help them be able to easily go and find it and understand what it means to be a crossing guard for the Eau Claire School District.
Commissioner Bika?
On the mileage reimbursement, and maybe this is included, I'm just not familiar, but what about somebody who would be taking the bus? Can they get, I know there's another section for employee mileage, other employees' mileage, but I'm just thinking about somebody who really might need that and they're a bus rider and
I'm not sure that I understand the question, so let me rephrase.
So I'll clarify.
Okay.
This, to me, reads that you have to drive a car to work to get reimbursement for mileage.
Yep, and I think that's what the IRS says. Is
What
you
about someone getting support who's riding a bus to work?
I would have to go back and look at what the IRS says about that. We haven't been asked, or that situation hasn't been brought forward to us, but we'd have to look to what the current.
I mean, it might create opportunities for some people.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Lori. Anyone else?
In the very last point D, in the second sentence, is it the property of the board or of the district?
Oh, it probably should be the district.
That's what I was hoping.
Employee receives protective gears. Yeah, I think we might just have to look through what the rest of the handbook language is. I'll double check, and it probably is the district would be my guess. Yeah, we can get that updated. Anything else?
No, that sounds good. Any other questions? Commissioner Beeke has one more.
Okay.
So in the revised section, it led me to look at some other sections, and one I was thinking about was the section 2.01 that that we might, this was not for revision. It wasn't a section of revision, but it was the one that I thought we should make maybe parallel with what we've done for students. So we don't have included in there, for example, gender identity, gender expression. We have some guarantees for students that we don't have for staff. Immigration status. Yeah.
It's in the staff policy, so we just need to.
Yeah.
You said it's under 2.01. Okay.
Right. Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't know.
Yeah, do you know what part?
It's the very
first section?
Yeah.
Non-discrimination
Yeah, it's not going to be on here, Patty. We'd have to actually pull it from the actual handbook
Yeah.
language. So I can look for that. And you said we have a policy?
It's so just take the new non-discrimination language that we did in the employee one that includes immigration status and gender identity expression. That should,
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that last year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We can get that out
Thanks,
for
Laura.
ERC and then bring it back.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'd like someone to move us into work session.
Does anyone in the public?
Oh, yeah. Does anybody from the public have anything to say before we go into work session? About the handbook modifications? We will in a second. No, that comes back next. Seeing none, can I have a motion to move into work session, please?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Harder. May I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I didn't think anybody wants to go into work session. Second by Commissioner Luganville. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the Eau Claire Area School Board. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.